I mean, I still feel that way.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm about to go on stage here in Delhi in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a little voice in my head saying like, why are you doing this? Why are these people going to be listening to you?
And you do it anyways.
And you do it anyway.
Contemplating the fact that every morning I wake up as me. There's 8 billion people in the world. Why am I persistently me?
The other possibility is, in fact, you're overestimating.
My good fortune to meet Anil Seth. He's a professor at University of Sussex and also director with Canadian Advanced Research Institute with the Mind, Consciousness and Brain. Has written some incredible books. I would recommend checking them out. But what I wanted to discuss with him today, and we were discussing that over lunch, is one of the things that I was sharing with you that I observed is the big shift psychologically that's required for the world that we today live in. And I see from my vantage point, you come across a lot of people who feel that they are good enough and they feel that there's a lot of overthinking they end up doing and tend to get a lot of anxious moments and at times, if not addressed early on or become aware early on, can lead into multiple thoughts around depression and other areas. That's an area that you specifically study with the brain, with the mind, and also consciousness. So what I thought would be most meaningful for our audience here is your lived experiences around this. Have you ever in your journey, I can certainly speak for myself, I had many moments of doubt myself that I felt I wasn't good enough, but I also saw that was the play of the mind in action. And frankly, it wasn't the reality that I see today. But in that moment, it was very consuming. And connecting the dots retrospectively is easier, but as we look forward, it can really be very, very overwhelming. So I genuinely get the feeling, the authenticity, the vulnerability around that. Can you speak, maybe remove your hat right now for a moment of your professor, but as an individual, Anil, have there been those vulnerable moments where you felt you were not good enough, you overthought, and maybe if you certainly have been able to overcome that, I assume that, but I don't want to make that assumption in the first place. Do speak your mind on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. Thanks, Nitin, for the conversation. And the short answer is yes. I certainly have. I'm pretty sure everybody has. Maybe there's a few people that haven't. And, sometimes these experiences are necessary. I think someone who doesn't have the potential to have these experiences is probably going to have other sorts of problems in their lives. I mean, I still feel that way.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm about to go on stage here in Delhi in front of a lot of people. And of course, there's a little voice in my head saying like, why are you doing this? Why are these people going to be listening to you?
And you do it anyways.
And you do it anyways. It becomes a little bit habitual. For me, that was a sort of a way of coping with situations that would otherwise induce strong anxiety, is you just do it anyway, which is not feeling good to start with, but then it becomes a little bit of a habit. Much like riding a bike, that can be pretty scary, and you do it and it's okay.
A few seconds of your time right here before we go back to the main video. First of all, thank you so much for all the feedback that's coming in. And we're now launching a program for professionals who have previously felt not good enough, imposter, overthought, and are looking to up the game in their careers with enhanced skills and clarity. If this is you or someone you know, feel free to sign up with the link in the description below. It'll take less than a minute. Trust me, you're not alone. I have been there myself and I've really transformed. So grateful for it. And this work provides so much meaning to my life. The seats are going to be limited and there's going to be a curated community. So I hope to see you on the inside. And if this can benefit somebody, feel free to share with them. Now back to the main video. Thank you.
But yeah, it's also been something that's changed, I think, in my life. There's certainly been periods where the anxiety and the depression was much more present. I mean, right now, fortunately, thankfully, I don't feel depressed. Of course, I still feel sad and anxious from time to time, the normal roller coaster of human emotion. But depression, I think, is something different. And I've had a few episodes in my life, between like a decade and 2 decades ago. And I would not wish that state on anyone. Depression is it's well, by the definition of how it is, it's one of the worst conditions you can be in at that moment.
So thank you for acknowledging and sharing with us.
And to deal with it in a certain way is, and this is where I have to put a little bit of the hat back on.
Yes, please do that.
I just have no.
You've been charming without the hat. And many other things.
And
I'm happy to.
With this sort of recognition, and this comes through in people who, unlike me, who've done a lot of meditation and so on, that how things seem is not how they are.
Yeah.
You have to try to induce a little distance between the immediacy of the moment and your conclusions about the objective state of the world or your situation in it that's giving rise to those feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, in meditation, this is all to do with recognizing that emotions and thoughts and so on are creations of the mind. They're not arbitrary. I mean, they're there for a reason, but they're not objectively transparent reflections of how things actually are. And if you have that space, that doesn't solve everything, but it opens a little gap where you can kind of pass through, allow these feelings to pass, and then use that space to try to change the things that need to be changed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. In fact, when I used to feel that way many years ago, meditation certainly opened up that doorway for me to be observant and to really see the play, in action. And I'm so grateful for it. And as you said, in fact, some of my mentors, one of them specifically, Tony Robbins, he said it, use it as a gift. In hindsight, maybe that was one of the gifts that you were meant to have.
Maybe, I don't know.
For the preparation. I don't know. That's
I always get a little suspicious of that kind of dialogue where people have a serious illness and say it's the best thing that ever happened to them. I find that doesn't sit too well with me. I would rather have not had these episodes of depression. But given that I had them, you try and make lemonade from lemons. You try to understand the why and try to make some use of it.
And frankly, from that end perspective, we are trying to make this awareness probably more ahead in time, where people can really see it for themselves before actually getting into that real depression, as you spoke of, which is what you don't hope for anybody to incur. And from that end, now putting back your scientist lens and other things that you've done, what are some tangible, maybe proven examples through science and maybe through your lived experience that people can take actionably on their daily basis that can really help them, one, to do their best work? Well, that's a topic in itself, to figure out what that work, and maybe that's where the gift is best utilized, identifying that gift and then giving it back. That's the way I see it, at least. But maybe once you go figure that out, in the course of doing that, what are some actionable steps from your identification and research and work that you have done and continue to do that you can share with them?
So, there's many scientific theories of things like depression, anxiety. There's a still dominant idea that it's a deficiency in serotonin levels, this neurotransmitter chemical. I think this idea is becoming increasingly critiqued. There may be something to it, but I think it's clearly an oversimplification of whatever is happening. It's not just crank up the serotonin, everything is fine. The way I've come to think about these things is an extension of basically an idea that I've been working with for nearly 20 years now, which is to think of the brain as a kind of prediction machine, and that everything that we perceive is a sort of perceptual inference, a brain-based best guess about what's going on. So when we see something like a color, it doesn't mean colors exist in the world objectively. Like red requires a mind to experience red. There's just light that's reflected in various ways. But it nonetheless seems real to us in our everyday life. Now, emotions are the same. Emotions, I think, are the brain's perception of the body in the context of the situation you're in. So when we experience an emotion, this goes back to William James, that the brain is inferring the physiological state of the body and how likely it is to do well or badly over time. And through that lens, we can start to understand a couple of things about depression. Firstly, it's the same kind of indirectness as applies to color. So if we feel the emotion of depression, yes, it's based in something happening in the body, but it's an interpretation of it. It's not the thing itself. And what's shaping that interpretation could be all kinds of things, your social context, but also the way you're thinking about it, ruminating on it. And when you recognize that, there's maybe the potential to change. And here the analogy breaks down, because we can't choose to see red things as green, typically. But we can begin to understand that the emotions we feel, instead of going straight to ruminating about what you think you failed at, or what you think you can't do, or what you thought you've done wrong. For me, to just locate those sensations in the body and think of them as perceptions of the body. And when I feel anxiety, I usually start thinking about some situation in the world, and then try and think about, where is it in my body? Is it in my hands? Is it in my feet? And that sort of dissolves, that breaks the cycle a little bit of feeling anxious to rumination, which reinforces the anxiety, which reinforces the rumination. It doesn't work all the time. But the actionable thing, I'm not a meditator. But because I've spent a long time with this idea of perception as a kind of construction, it's just to get into the mental habit of thinking about this, thinking about all the time that how you perceive things isn't necessarily how they actually are. It's related. It's not arbitrary. Of course, if your car's crossing the road, you don't walk out in front of it because there's a real thing there. But there's a level of indirectness that can be very helpful when we encounter aversive experiences like depression.
Well, I'll just say one thing, if you allow me to. Maybe just hearing you, and of course, everybody has a unique, different experience. But if you haven't really explored the depths of meditation, as a friend, I'm just hoping you consider the depths of it, because for me, it really opened up the doorway for many other things that are unfolding every single day, including the serendipity of running into you today and having this call and maybe bringing this message to you. Despite being a leading scientist and a voice in the space, do consider, with sincerity is what I can say on meditation, because I feel I've been a practitioner of it for many time, but I think there's a truth to be lived, and you can't, at least for me, I see it, you can't undo the truth once you've experienced it. And you can have all kinds of scientific hypotheses and assumptions. I mean, I was in the world that you live today, back in the world at Stanford, Neuroscience, studying the brain. But there's only so much I could study through my scientific understanding. And then there's a different dimension that I'm able to understand through living the truth.
Absolutely.
And then connecting the dots retrospectively is easy for me, relatively. But you gotta still make a daily practice. That's just what I live and I do. Sensations, Vipassana is something that I tried, and it really brought me to sensations and understanding it again in the depth that I can, and it's grown over time. But I also feel, Anil, that you talk a lot about and you research about consciousness, and we live in the world today of AI. And it's just, I mean, back in the day I was researching, with Bayesian ANNs, which are the folding blocks of AI today. And I've been thankful to contribute to that work through my professor. But I also see some limitations of it, in my view. What do you think, if with the AI, and you talk about that as well, so what have you found, where's the limitation of AI? And in this world today, when knowledge and intelligence is almost getting democratized and commoditized in some ways through the advent of technology, what are we supposed to do as humans? Or what do you think you'd be contributing best from your lens?
Well, I mean, firstly on the meditation thing, I have tried. I've been to some meditation retreats, and I've followed apps and all these sorts of things. I agree with you that there's things you can learn from a first-person experience that you can't learn from a third-person experience. There's a lived, there's a dimension of lived reality which cannot be replaced by a third-person perspective. So I'll try it again. But also, I don't think everything has to be for everybody. Some people might find meditation the way to go. It's not easy for anyone. But for other people, there may be some other way to do it.
Absolutely.
And just quickly on the AI thing, I mean, it's super interesting, right? And I think the only thing I want to say about that now is that it's part of the world we now live in, which is going to, I think, disrupt us once again. And it may be the immediate cause of quite a lot of feelings of anxiety.
Yes.
What's my role in the world? What am I going to do? Do I understand things? Do I know what's going on?
Yeah.
Part of it is we have Paleolithic brains and godlike technologies and medieval institutions, frankly. Wilson said something like this, and it's very hard to, and there's a certain anxiety that comes from a feeling of loss of control. And modern society, with all its amazing opportunities, can also induce this feeling of disorientation.
Yeah.
So what to do about that? Well, I think firstly recognize that that's a natural reaction, but it doesn't mean that there is a loss of control. It just means that's how we tend to respond given the kinds of situations that our minds and brains evolved in. And also I think specifically with AI, to resist the temptation to project ourselves too easily into these AI systems, these machines that we create, and recognize that there's something still very special, very distinct about human brains, minds, consciousness, and not just humans, other animals too, but living systems are different, richer than the systems that we still build. And if we think of these systems as complementary to us rather than as our sort of replacements or superiors, then I think we can foster, we can maximize the upsides and minimize the downsides.
And I see like play in harmony as well. Leverage the tool as a tool and then continue to move forward on what we are meant to do here. And just to like bring a disclaimer on meditation, there are various ways to actually meditate. One of the forms that I mentioned was Vipassana.
Yes.
But for some, it could actually be in painting. What brings you to really be in that present, which is the gift, not the past, not the future, but the present. And it's termed present for a gift. Whatever brings you to that. It could be listening to old songs, it could be painting, it could be different formats. I mean, I was speaking to Adam right now, and for him, it's nature walks.
Yes.
So it would mean different things to different people, and there's no set format. But I'm really happy to know that you have been considering it, and it's making a difference in your life. Certainly has been for me.
Good.
It's been an absolute pleasure and delight to be with you today. Thank you for sharing your views with us, and I hope this is meaningful to all of you. Take care. Thank you. Thank you so much, my dear, for staying till the very end. Please email us what value have you gotten in this video or the previous videos, and more importantly, what value are you seeking from the program if you're interested. As a token of appreciation for your time and feedback, I'd be happy to spend 15 minutes with you one-on-one for the first 20 of you who email us at coach.nitindua@gmail.com. Until I see you in the next video, this is Nitin Dua serving you with love. Thank you.